All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are back with our interviews with our hosts of the various programs that are coming to you on OkanaganRadio.com, your new home for golden oldies and cool jazz. And boy, have we got a golden oldie for you right now. This man is, in fact, I wouldn't say a golden oldie, but my God, we've been spending the last hour now, I think, or half an hour, talking about the good old days. And I'll tell you, it's just a real honor and a pleasure to welcome Frank Allan officially to the new OkanaganRadio.com. Frank, welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Allan. The golden oldies. I'm only 21 years old. Keep that in mind. I just happen to know about the golden oldies. But
that's right.
But thank you so much for having me on right now.
Well, I'll tell you, Frank. I had an opportunity to go back into the bio. Frank and I have never really met officially through any conversation. We've talked through email, but look back at Frank's bio and the early days of how he got started in radio, and the names that just jumped out at me right away, of course, were Murray the K and Cousin Brucey, and he and I have just been talking about the golden days of radio in New York City, where he is from. And so, Frank, let's go back to those early days for you, and just kind of give everybody a capsule overview of how you got started in radio and some of your heroes or mentors, shall we say.
Well, that question is not hard at all. My ultimate hero was Alan Freed. I remember growing up in the 50s, I used to listen to Alan Freed at night. He used to come on at night here in New York. And the only time I could actually stay up and listen to him was on a Friday night because there was no school the next day. But I was in bed at 8 o'clock. So what I used to do is I used to lay down, go to sleep, and have the radio on and listen to Alan Freed until I fell asleep. So, yeah, he was the inspiration on where I was today, because the very first time I heard him, I said, you know what? That's the guy. That's who I want to be.
You wanted to be like Moondog Alan Freed.
Moondog. I loved Alan Freed. I love that. And I'm sorry I never actually met him. I'm really angry because my parents met him. And so that's as close as I ever got to Alan Freed.
Wait a minute. How did your parents meet him and you not meet him?
They went to a rock and roll show. And when we were all living in Brooklyn. And they went to the Brooklyn Paramount Theater, which I'm pretty sure you're familiar about because you know New York.
Absolutely.
So they went to see him, and I think they had a chance to go backstage, and they met him. And Jackie Wilson was back there, which was another one of my favorite kind of people. Wow. And I was angry.
So you were living out your anger through. You said, "I'm gonna be like him one day." You know what's funny about Alan Freed? I remember he used to ring the cowbell.
Yes.
And he'd pound out on a telephone directory. He'd sing a few bars of the record at the end.
That's right.
And, good Lord. When you think about these guys, and you and I were just talking about those days where we don't have personality radio these days. We've got people that basically do a couple of announcements in between not even recognizable songs maybe to you and I, and then 8 minutes of commercials in a row. These were personalities that took over the entire airwaves, like Murray the K. You mentioned Frankie Crocker, Tommy Smalls, Dr. Jive.
That's right.
Jack Lacey, Jocko Henderson.
That's right.
What was it about these people, Frank, that was so impressive to us as young teenagers?
Every one of them had a distinct personality. You can tell one from the other. As today in radio, you can't tell one guy from the other. Everyone had their own niche, their own approach to radio, their own approach to their show. Like you mentioned, Alan Freed was there. He rang the cowbell. There was a guy by the name of Pete Meyer, Mad Daddy. Mad Daddy used to always, if you ever listen to his show, he always used his echo effect. Seriously. So, and I used to wonder how you got the reverb. But as I got into radio and learned how to do it, what they did was run a tape and just let it go, and then they just turn up the potentiometer, and that's how the echo would come in. So yeah, he had that. Jack Lacey was a little more laid back and mellow. I mean, he'll tell you, well, this is Jack Lacey, and we're going to play the hits. We'll be here till 12 o'clock. And he was kind of plain, but he was good.
Yeah.
Murray the K with the swinging soiree. He was.
He had a rhythm to him.
Absolutely.
And there was a guy called Woo Woo Ginsburg too. I remember there was
Arnie
Woo Woo Ginsburg
out of Boston, MEX. I think it was WMEX radio in Boston.
That's right.
He had everything. He had the cowbells. He had the horn. Arnie Woo Ginsburg.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now I tell you, we start our show every morning. I managed to find all these tracks, and I start my show off in the morning. With
I know.
Just to, I'm sure you can relate, and I love it because it just says, "Hey," and people are listening. What the heck is that? I said, "That's radio." what's funny is, and it's almost sardonic, is that I have a grandson who's 10 years when I brought him into my studio, I showed him there was a radio there. He was 8 years old at the time. He said, "Gampy, what's that?" I said, "That's a radio." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You plug it into the wall and that's how you listen to the radio." He said, "You mean like in the car with mommy's car radio?" I said, "No, this is a real radio." And he absolutely was mind blown. And a lot of these kids today, they've never seen a radio, an actual radio. They have iPods, they have iPads, they have smartphones,
right.
But they are not listening to the radio through a radio.
Well, that's too bad. That's too bad because there was nothing like the radio. Back in those days, they called it the theater of the mind.
Yeah.
And when you listen to it, that's why these DJs, the way they did their act on the radio, they were painting a picture for all of us to see. And we had to imagine this.
Yes.
We don't do that today. Some DJs are doing that today just to keep up the illusion of the 1950s and 60s. But that's how they did it. They were painting a picture for everyone to just imagine what it's like out there. And that's what made these guys so popular. That when we were talking about personality radio, that was the beginning of the personality radio. And no more, Alan. There's no more of it. It's gone.
Yeah.
Over. Finito.
Yeah, finito. So I think that this is sort of a gathering of the radio veterans like yourself and myself and others who are that'll be on the station that have honed their skills. They are professional people. They're very knowledgeable. A lot of the hosts have actually been involved with the music that they're playing. A lot of the jazz hosts have actually been in an orchestra or in a band with the people that they're playing. Now, you played in a college orchestra, a neighborhood rock band. That's right. While you were in college, right? And
you really do your homework.
Yeah. And I also know you had a trumpet. Tell them the story about this pawn shop. The $50 story.
Yes. I was 18 years old, and I was inspired by one of the guys in my neighborhood who played the trumpet, and his brother played the drums. So I said, I want to try that. I didn't know that I was going to actually do it, but I tried it. So I said, how much does your trumpet cost? He says, it cost me about $150. Well, hell, $150 that was too much for me. So I'm just wandering around, and I passed this pawn shop in the neighborhood, and I saw this brass, not a brass, but it was a copper-colored trumpet, and I've never seen anything like that before. And I said, wow. So I went into the pawn shop, and I said to the guy, I said, how much does that trumpet cost? He says, $50. I had $5 in my pocket. Because back in those days, you could lay things away. Yeah. I said, if I give you this $5, can you hold it for me? He says, yes, I'll hold it for you, but don't make it into a mortgage. So I gave him the $5, and fortunately, I had a job, and I worked overtime, double time, and triple time to accumulate all the money that I need to get that trumpet out of that pawn shop. And I pulled the trumpet, and I finally got it. It came out the case and the mouthpiece and all. I even named the trumpet Barbara.
Why did you name it
Barbara? Because I was working at this place called the New York Life Insurance Company. And there was a girl there that was working, a very attractive girl by the name of Barbara. And I liked her. I was really sweet on her. But she wouldn't pay me the time of day. So I said, the only way I'm going to get next to this girl is that I'm going to name my trumpet Barbara.
I knew there was a story.
So I have me a Barbara now.
Barbara. Have you still got that trumpet?
I cried like a baby when I lost it. I was in the process of moving one time to another apartment, and I packed up all my stuff and put it into the mover's truck, and consequently they stole it, and I just never got it back.
Wow, geez, this is your own Glenn Miller story. Where he goes to the pawn shop and you got the Frank Allan story. The book, the movie, now the major motion picture. What about the actual band that you played in, or the orchestra you played in? What was the name of these? What was the name of this band? Did it go on to stardom and leave you behind?
No, it didn't. It was like just a neighborhood band. And as a matter of fact, it was the guy that was involved in the band was the first guy I was telling you about who played the trumpet that inspired me to get the trumpet.
Yeah.
So he dropped out of the band. I jumped in because they needed a trumpet player. I jumped in. And his brother stayed. He was on the drums. And we had another guy that thought he was hot stuff just because he played the tambourine. And the band was terrible, Alan. I'm trying to make things positive.
Wait, I got the name of the band for you. It's Frankie and the Blasters.
We didn't even have a name. Didn't have a name. We couldn't use the name. We couldn't use the name the band because it was an already established band. The band.
Well, the kids today, they're on their iPads. It can be stickball. Stickball was a big deal. And when you played, you actually overturned the garbage cans, and you could do a drum thing on the garbage can. It was like your own little your own little thing. Well, listen, tell us about the show, because everybody, those that have not heard Frank's show. By the way, if you listen to the morning show now, every morning for the last hour, I said to Frank, it's great because I get to take a breakfast and pee break. I get to leave the studio, literally, and go have breakfast with my wife. And she said, "Why are you in here?" I said, "Because Frank's in the other room." And he's in the last hour because I don't have the energy for 3 hours. So Frank's playing. Well, what's going to happen is we're going to be able to hear his entire show finally on the station when we launch in September. But tell our listeners a little bit about the show and kind of what just about the show. It's your show.
Okay. Well, first of all, Alan, I want to thank you for even asking me to do this. I really appreciate this. When I got the call from you, I said, "Wow, they want this show. What is he going to do with this show?" And I had to ask you, what kind of radio station? But so what we do on our show, we reflect on the music of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And I always say we play rock and roll, doo-wops, R&B, and pop music. And occasionally I'll throw in a few tidbits on the artists. The history of the artists, how they got started, where they were, where was the sun rising when they recorded it, anything I can come up with to make it interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, it's a 4-hour show, and we're syndicated, as you already know, and we're doing well with it. And I'm having a ball. I wasn't going to keep this show going on for long until it took off the way it did. But now I'm going to carry it for as long, and just to see where it goes. Because I'm not a young man anymore.
Well, yeah, I think you're younger than I am. But but tell me. I often wondered, is there, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I constantly refer to you as being in the DJ Hall of Fame. Is there a DJ Hall of Fame? Is there someplace where we go that somebody can say, "Hey, this guy was great"? We're like the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame. Do we have a DJ Hall of Fame?
There's a Radio Hall of Fame. There's a radio.
Are you in that? Are you in that?
Oh no, they wouldn't. They never.
Why?
Did anybody?
Why not?
I don't know. Alan, I mean, if I can get you or some of the listeners to vote for me and say, why isn't this guy in the Radio Hall of Fame? If they listen, Alan, I'm not going to throw out a lot of names, but you got people in there, and you can go online to see this. You have people in the Radio Hall of Fame that have no business being in the Radio Hall of Fame. And I looked at some of the names. I'm not going to throw the names out. It wouldn't be fair. But I looked at some of those names and I say, how in the hell they get there?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's corporate thing. Cousin Brucey, Murray McKay, Frankie Crocker, Tommy Small. They're not. There's no Hall of Fame. These are the true radio DJ Hall of Famers. It's not Rush Limbaugh and all these guys on talk radio. That's not. Those are just angry. That's not it.
Well, you keep throwing out the names and I'll just listen. But you're right. You're right. And these guys are phenomenal. Brucey is just as. He's a gentleman as much as he is on the air. I don't know if you ever met him.
Never. I never had the pleasure. I'm sure, but you have.
But if you ever meet Brucey will talk to you like he's known you for 20 years.
Yeah.
I never forget the time I indirectly worked with Brucey one time. He had this thing called the Variety, some kind of organization to help needy children. And I was working at WOR Radio in New York at that time, and he came by and we did this radiothon on WOR Radio. And anyway, before we went on the air, he said to me, "I would like you to meet my wife, Jody." Now, I didn't know Jody. That was his wife. Well, why are you introducing me to your wife? But he was that kind of a person.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you were working with him,
yeah.
you were part of the family, I guess. I don't know, but he's a real sweet person. I love Brucey, and I hope it gets back to him that I said that.
Well, he's on Sirius satellite, which we can't. It's not. We have to be serious about Sirius.
Yeah.
For a moment.
Yeah.
The days are numbered with satellite radio. Everybody knows that. Simply because and it's happening already, where you can get Wi-Fi in your car, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you get Wi-Fi in your car, which means you can get OkanaganRadio.com, you can get Frank's show, you can get my show, you get thousands and thousands of show for free. Yeah. There's no charge, there's no installation, it's going to be, and so that's when Sirius, and already Sirius and XM have merged, because they know the writing's on the wall. So eventually, when it's free, this is going to be the reality. We are the new radio. This is the new radio landscape. Hopefully, Cousin Brucey will see the light and say, "Hey, I'm going to do my own thing, just like you're doing." And that's really where it's at, because you're still beholding to somebody else. The corporate. It's still a corporation. Sirius.
Allan, you wouldn't believe this, but I told someone when this whole internet radio came on, the satellite radio, when it all came to being, I said, you know what? I don't like the sound of this. I don't like the looks of it. And I said, I don't think it's going to stay. And like you said, here we are. We're at the phase now where it's kind of phasing out. It's fizzling.
Yeah.
People don't want to pay for radio.
No.
That's why we get on the air and we say radio the way it should be, the way it was then, the way it should be now. Free radio for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, independent, organic, free-range radio. That's what I call it.
The only thing you have to do is buy your own beer.
Yeah.
That's all.
Well, that's right. And you know who came before us, Frank? Actually, it was in England. They did it on a ship. It was called Pirate Radio.
Pirate Radio.
Remember? Yeah, Pirate Radio.
Yeah. There are still a lot of pirate radio stations out there that haven't been caught yet. But the FCC has gotten so weak, and I'm just going to tell it just like it is. The FCC has gotten so weak till I don't even think they bother with this anymore. A long time ago, and you and I know this, there were certain things you could say on the air and certain things you couldn't say on the air, little curse words. Even the ones that are acceptable today, I don't even say on the air because I'm just that old-fashioned. But the reason why I say the FCC is weak in that department is because this freedom of speech, what amendment is that? The Fifth Amendment, right?
Yeah.
These guys are saying, well, you can't tell me what to say. I have my freedom of speech, my freedom of expression, and this is what I want to do, and you can't violate that. And that's how we got radio today.
Yeah, yeah. And the internet is we respect the artists, okay?
Yes,
and we honor them and respect them. We don't steal their music. And the FCC is similar to in Canada with the CRTC. They can't regulate the internet, and it's very, very difficult. And so, and we actually through our stream, the SecureNet covers royalties for the music that we're playing, so it's all covered. But I think what's really the truth of all this, and this is where I think that where you and I are, where we're delighted and thrilled to be able to have an audience, first of all, okay?
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. I don't know about you, but when I used to get on the radio and when I was a kid, I had no idea who was listening. And I used to say, I pretend that I was talking to my mother because my mother was my biggest fan. When I was 10, my dad hooked a speaker in the kitchen and I was in the den and I broadcast to my mother and she said, "You're great, you're wonderful." That's all I needed. So it's the same with you. I'm sure that your parents say. So all we know is that we have an audience. And I think what's refreshing is that you had this young fella, 18 years old, that wrote to you and said, "I really love the music."
Yeah.
If we can bring back that, if they're actually willing to listen to us and say, "You know what, I really value what we're saying, that it must have been a great time," which it was.
Yeah, it was a great time.
It was a great time. You didn't need security people at the movie before you came into Frisky to see if you got a gun before you go into the movie. You just went in for $1.50 and you stayed all day and watched the cartoons and ate a box of popcorn. I could get in for a quarter.
That's right.
10 cents for a box of popcorn, a nickel for a pop, and 10 cents for the movie. And there was and I started in a theater where you came in, you had to bring your own apple box. There was no seats in the theater.
That's right. That's right. And you know something I was going to say, the beautiful part about radio is that you don't know who's listening, but rest assured, you have more people listening than you actually know.
Yeah.
Someone is out there. You have what they call the passive audience, which they won't call you, they won't write to you or email you or anything. They just listen. And then every once in a while you get a note from someone. They say, "Oh, I love your show," or "Oh, you stink," or whatever it is, you know?
Yeah. But you know something, Frank? When I did my show, I did a show on terrestrial radio. It was called the Home Biz Show. It was for home business entrepreneurs, and I never got one call. I'd open the phone lines, nobody would call. And this young fellow in there, who's my producer, said something very interesting to me. I said, I'm really discouraged. I didn't get any calls. He said, why? I said, well, nobody called. He said, have you ever thought to think that maybe they're just totally engaged and enthralled by what you're saying, and they're just listening, like you said. They're just listening.
He's exactly right. That's what it is, If you can get that first call on the air, and they say something that sparks a conversation, that's when you generate more of your calls. But you're right. It's the passive audience. Those are the people that actually sitting there laying. Hey, listen, Allan, you might be interested to know. I have this one lady that religiously, every time there's a station in West Virginia that I'm broadcasting on. And every week after that show goes off the air, I would get a call. I don't get the call until the next day because, I pick it up on the answering machine. But she would say, "Oh, I heard the show," and she'll tell me everything I said, everything I did.
Wow.
Can you play this? Can you play that? Religiously, she does that. All you have to do is just get one of those kind of people.
I know. And the thing is, and we should tell our listeners that one of the things that we talked about, should we go live with Frank Show or should we not? We may in the future, but for now, we just don't have the ability to carry them live. But you do requests. You take people's requests. Tell our audience, those people that maybe listening to us, and this is a great thing. Another great thing about the web radio virtual dial, Frank, is that people are listening to me in Australia and all over the world. So tell those that can pick you up live and can call in, what sort of setup do you have for requests?
Okay, for the requests, the show is syndicated, so therefore I couldn't possibly do anything live. So what happens is that the show is pre-recorded. I shouldn't even give you this information on the air live, but it's best for you to know anyway. The show is pre-recorded, but what I do is I get on the air and I tell them, hey, get your requests and dedications, and we can get them in there. Yeah. And then I give them a number, which is, can I say the number?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 206-279-4434. That's the request number. So they will either use that number, or if they don't have access to a telephone, and who doesn't these days, they could email me, which is musicbeatradio@aol.com. Michelle takes care of all of that stuff. I have nothing to do with that. So by the end of the week, when we get ready to do the show, she'll have all of that information for me. She'll say, this is a request. She'll pull that music. She'll set that up. And then we go on the show from there. That's the way we do it. I'm sorry we couldn't do it live. We couldn't possibly do that show live.
Well, I was just going to say, this is the thing about, we're comparing what went on in those days. In those days, we all had producers that were sitting right across from us in the station. Yeah. Okay? They were paid by the station. We didn't have to pay for them. Right. Frank and I have experienced that. We've had all that. I know I've been part owner of a station. We've had staff. We have producers. We have engineers. We have all that. Everything's changed, folks. It's hard to maintain that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It may get to the point where you have to do everything by yourself. God help me if that happens.
Well, but, I don't think we're at that. We're quite at that stage. What's great about all this technology is that we're now being introduced every day to new software. I broadcast on Mixler. There's SoundCloud. There's somebody says, "Where's your program?" I said, "It's in the cloud." I said, What the heck does that mean? It's in the cloud. How do I get to it? Well, it's in the cloud.
You tell them to follow the sun.
yeah, follow the sun. All right. So, all right. I think we've covered everything and more. It's been great, Frank.
I had a good time. I wish we could talk more.
Well, I'm sure we will down the road. But for now, this is all we need, and we're gonna put this on the show probably Friday morning and get this interview going. And we're gonna do this with all the hosts. But Frank was special because he's back to the era where I was. We have so many memories of New York and all of that stuff. So it's been fun visiting with you, Frank. And
thank you so much.
We'll talk soon.
Okay, that'll be great.
All right, Frank. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Allan.
Bye for now.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.